Have you ever clutched a four-leaf clover before an important meeting, kissed a necklace before stepping on stage, or carried a coin in your wallet just in case? Maybe you've never told anyone about it. Maybe you've laughed it off. But deep down in that quiet space between logic and fear, something in you whispered, what if it actually helps? You're not alone. In fact, from professional athletes to business leaders to your next-door neighbor, lucky charms have been quietly influencing lives for centuries. And despite how irrational they might seem, there's a deeper story beneath the surface, one where science and belief aren't enemies, but curious collaborators. Let's start with something real. Imagine a violinist, moments before her audition for one of the most prestigious orchestras in the world. Her palms are sweaty, the pressure is crushing, but she does something small. She runs her fingers across a tiny pendant hidden beneath her blouse. It belonged to her grandmother. That's all. One small motion. But suddenly she feels steadier, calmer. She lifts her bow, takes a breath, and begins to play. Did the charm change the outcome? Or did it change her? That's the first layer of truth about lucky charms. They're rarely about magic. They're about control. When life feels chaotic, unpredictable, or out of our hands, humans have a stunning ability to find meaning in symbols. It's not superstition, it's a survival mechanism. Researchers call it the illusion of control, and while it may sound negative, it can have surprisingly positive effects. In a 2010 study published in Psychological Science, participants who believed they had a lucky charm actually performed better on memory and motor skill tasks than those without one. Not because the object held power, but because the belief in it boosted their confidence. Confidence, it turns out, is a powerful neurochemical cocktail. When you believe you have something on your side, even a bracelet, a crystal, or a scrap of paper, it can ease your anxiety, sharpen your focus, and increase persistence. And in high-pressure moments, those micro-shifts can mean the difference between freezing and flowing. We aren't saying everyone needs a rabbit's foot to function, but the science suggests that belief, even in small symbolic objects, can rewire our brains just enough to alter outcomes. And here's the twist. The more personal the charm, the more effective it tends to be. That's because emotional value creates emotional regulation. In other words, your brain links that object to comfort, memory, even identity. You're not carrying a trinket, you're carrying a lifeline. If you're enjoying this deeper dive into the psychology and science of luck, now's a great moment to support the channel. Give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps more than you know, and it keeps this content reaching those who truly resonate with it. Let's go deeper. There's a reason soldiers carried photos, actors kept tokens in their pockets, and students walk into exams with the same pen every time. Rituals and lucky objects reduce the mental load. They become anchors in a storm. One woman shared how she kept a tiny button from her father's coat in her purse after he passed. Every time she faced something overwhelming, she held that button. It grounded her, not because it guaranteed success, but because it reminded her she'd faced worse and survived. That's the beautiful contradiction of lucky charms. They're rooted in vulnerability, but expressed through strength. They're not signs of weakness or ignorance. They're tools, psychological armor, that allow us to step into uncertainty with just a bit more faith. And honestly, in a world that often feels cold, chaotic, and punishing, who wouldn't want to carry a small piece of hope? Let me ask you something. Do you have a charm? Something you never leave the house without, even if you don't talk about it? Leave it in the comments. I'd love to know. Whether it's a worn-out coin, a folded note, or a photo in your wallet, your story matters, and you might just inspire someone else to reconnect with what keeps them steady. When we come back, we'll dive into why some charms seem to work better than others, and how cultural symbolism plays into our personal rituals. And you might be surprised by how deeply these beliefs run, not just in our minds, but in our biology. So if you're still with me, stay tuned. The real magic might not be in the object, but in what it unlocks within us. The moment you start to look closer at lucky charms, something fascinating begins to unfold. They're not random, not really. Whether it's a jade bracelet passed through generations in a Chinese family, a Nazar amulet pinned to a baby's shirt in Turkey, or a rosary held tight during a sleepless night, there's a pattern. Across centuries, across continents, people have gravitated towards symbols, each one soaked in meaning, memory, and something ancient. And here's where the science meets something deeper than logic: cultural imprinting. From a young age, we're taught, quietly, sometimes without words, what matters, what protects us, what to fear. If your grandmother kissed her saint medal before bed every night and you watched her do it, part of that ritual lives in you, not as dogma, but as comfort, as security. These symbols, passed down in rituals or whispered beliefs, shape our neural pathways just as surely as school or stories do. You're not just reacting to an object, you're responding to decades, maybe centuries, of emotional conditioning. And it works, not in the way you might think, not like a wand casting spells, but it works in the limbic system, in the parts of your brain that regulate fear, memory, and emotional response. When you hold that familiar charm, your heart rate slows, your breath deepens, your mind settles, you enter a different state, and sometimes that calm, right before a crisis, a test, a leap, is exactly what shifts the outcome. It's why some people swear they always win with a specific lottery number, or why athletes follow strange pre-game routines involving socks, gum, or old t-shirts. They're not deluded, they're anchored. Their brains have mapped a link between that object and a successful outcome, even if it was coincidental. And because the mind craves patterns, it repeats the ritual. Over time, it becomes belief. Belief becomes behavior. And behavior, well, behavior can shape reality. If this exploration into the emotional and cultural layers of lucky charms is resonating with you, take a second now to subscribe and tap that like button. It tells me this content matters to you, and it fuels more research-based, soulful stories like this. Now let's go even deeper. You might be wondering, if it's all belief, why do some charms seem to stop working over time? That's where intention and attention come into play. A charm, no matter how powerful its origin, can lose its effect if it becomes mechanical, if we stop engaging with it emotionally. It's not the object that holds the power, it's the relationship you have with it. When that connection becomes passive, so does the psychological impact. It's like the difference between saying "I love you" with presence versus out of habit. One moves mountains, the other just makes noise. I once spoke to a woman who had kept a specific bracelet with her during a series of surgeries. It gave her strength. Then, years later, she faced another hardship and instinctively reached for it, but felt nothing. I'd moved on, she told me. I didn't need it anymore, and that's how I knew I was healing. That struck me. Because it reveals a paradox. Lucky charms can empower us to such a degree that we eventually outgrow them. They serve their purpose, like training wheels for the soul. When we've integrated the strength they symbolized, we may no longer need the object itself. But what about when they do keep working? When the charm continues to deliver? Well, here's where it gets even more fascinating. Recent research in neuropsychology shows that habitual symbolic rituals, those that blend personal significance with consistent action, can change our stress responses. When paired with visualization or a clear goal, they actually boost cognitive performance. Why? Because they reduce uncertainty. When we reduce uncertainty, we increase clarity. With clarity comes better choices, sharper thinking, and a greater ability to perform under pressure. So, that necklace you always wear to job interviews, the stone you carry before a date, the coin in your pocket as you take that leap of faith, they're not just sentimental, they're tools. Tools that modulate your mental state, even if they don't alter the universe around you. Still, there's a danger in overdependence. If belief in a charm becomes rigid, if we think I can't succeed without this, then we cross a line. We hand over our power. And that's not what lucky charms are meant to do. They're not meant to own your power. They're meant to remind you of it. Let me ask you something real. What's the moment in your life when you felt like the odds were stacked against you, but you still moved forward because of something you carried, wore, or remembered? If you feel comfortable, share it in the comments. You never know who might read it and feel seen. So far, we've explored how lucky charms create a psychological safety net, how they bridge our need for control with rituals and cultural meaning. But there's one more layer we need to address: the metaphysical. Not everyone believes that the charm is just symbolic. Some feel that there is something more, an energy, a force, a resonance that science hasn't yet measured. And that deserves a deeper look. Let me know when you're ready for part 3. That's where we go beyond the mind and into the mystery. There's a moment, a quiet, still moment, when science begins to lose its grip on explanation. When all the data, all the research, all the studies seem to pause, and we're left with something else, something we feel, but can't quite name. That's where we enter the space of the metaphysical. Because for some people, lucky charms are more than psychological tools. They're vessels, carriers of energy, intention, maybe even divine will. You might scoff at that, or you might know exactly what I mean. Maybe you've held something that didn't just calm you, but glowed in your palm. Maybe you've worn an object that seemed to pull you toward the right decision. You can't prove it, but you remember it. It felt alive. Across spiritual traditions, we see a consistent belief that objects can absorb and emit energy. In Hinduism, amulets are blessed through rituals before being worn for protection. In West African traditions, charms called grisgri are created with herbs, symbols, and prayers tailored to the person's need. In Christianity, relics and medals are said to carry the essence of saints and martyrs, offering guidance or safety. In all cases, the object becomes a conduit, not of superstition, but of connection. Connection to the divine, to ancestors, to the invisible current that runs beneath everything. Even quantum physics hints at this strange connectivity. Atoms entangled across space, influencing one another instantaneously, regardless of distance. Science calls it quantum entanglement. Mystics call it synchronicity. And while the fields are different, the feeling is eerily similar, that everything might be more connected than we think. So is it really that strange to believe a charm, when created with intention, when tied to memory or prayer, might carry more than just symbolic weight? Now, this doesn't mean every trinket sold as magical online holds real energy. Intention matters. Authenticity matters. A charm becomes powerful not because it's old or exotic or expensive, but because it's been claimed by your soul. It's been seen, infused with meaning, and possibly aligned with something greater than yourself. But here's a hard truth. No charm, no matter how powerful, will protect you from the work you're avoiding. If you wear a talisman for courage, but never take the risk, it can't do much. If you carry a coin for abundance but keep sabotaging your own growth, the charm is just metal in your pocket. Energy flows where intention goes. The charm is the reminder, not the replacement. And maybe that's the secret. Maybe lucky charms work because they anchor us to a truth we've forgotten, that we are co-creators of our reality, that when we align belief, intention, and action, when we truly trust in what we're doing, The universe has a strange way of responding. You might notice the right opportunity comes sooner. You might feel stronger walking into that room. You might sleep better, dream clearer, speak with more conviction. Not because the charm is magic, but because you are. And the charm reminded you. If you're still watching this and it's stirred something in you, now's the perfect time to subscribe and hit the like button. It's a small gesture, but it tells me these stories are worth telling, and that you want more of them. So, what do we make of all this? Do lucky charms really work? The answer is both simpler and deeper than you think. They work because we do. Because we give them power through our attention, our emotion, our rituals, and our faith. Whether you believe it's psychology, culture, or unseen energy, the effect is real. And maybe that's enough. Here's a final invitation. Tonight, before bed, choose one object that means something to you. Hold it in your hand for just a minute. Breathe. Think about what it represents. Not what you want it to do for you, but what it reminds you you already are. Brave. Whole. Ready. See what happens in the next few days. Not just outside of you, but within. And if you've ever had a moment where you felt a charm truly helped you, maybe even saved you, share it in the comments. Your story might help someone else remember their own power. Thank you for joining me on this journey into belief, science, and something more. Until next time, stay grounded, stay open, and stay lucky.